Okay, and welcome everybody, and thank you for coming to the last seminar of the day, which is going to be about SHOCHU hospitality. And we have our guest over here, who is going to be Andy May, who is a head bartender and consultant for the Golden Swan. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. May.
Thank you so much, Joe. Awesome. Just doing a little sound check. Wonderful. Hello, everybody. My name is Andy May. I am a lover of shochu. I currently am the head bartender at the Golden Swan, which is in the West Village. I help consult on their menu there. Before that, I was the beverage manager at Rule of Thirds and American Izakaya in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. And then prior to that, I did some social media work with the Hidden Pearl. And I've been consulting on and off since the pandemic with folks at the US Open with Corilla. And my first New York experience was at the Polynesian, a very large tropical bar in Midtown. These are just a few photos of my experience in and around shochu. If you look over there to the left, and this fun gentleman in this blue hat, that is the president of Ichigo Shochu when I was fortunate enough to go and travel to Kyushu in 2019, a long, long time ago before the world had changed. You see myself making some ceramics with friends, doing some boba cocktails, enjoying some paper carton shochu, and over to the right you'll see two of my favorite things, which is shochu, emo shochu, in these beautiful vats, these kames that are just sitting in the ground, waiting to be distilled. Up above is also an orange flamingo, which just so happens to be my favorite shochu. So, a lot of you might be asking, what is shochu? Have you had shochu before? And why is it special? There are times when people have shochu and they think, oh, I've had that before. It's soju. I eat it with bulgogi, galbi. I cheers it. I do some fun stuff and swirl it around bottles. But actually, shochu and soju are very contrastly different beverages. Just to go through it really quickly, if you don't know. Oh, it's gonna bang. There it is. So shochu comes from Japan. It's single distilled. It's made out of 50 various different ingredients, but the most popular ones are going to be rice, barley, and sweet potato. You can have it served with rocks, with soda, and my personal favorite is with warm water, especially during the colder months, which we'll be entering soon, hopefully. They use black and white koji. If you're familiar with sake production, they use yellow koji. And the ABV is roughly between 20% and 40%. So it is a distilled spirit. It's not like sake where it's brewed like beer. Shochu is distilled like whiskey. Soju, on the other hand, is from Korea. It is typically a continuous distillation product with their ABV ranging from as low as 15% to 55%. And they can use countless additives. I'm sure if you've gone to the liquor store and you've seen this tiny little green bottle that says chamisul and it's got blueberry or watermelon or lychee flavors, those are all fantastic. I think soju in itself is a fantastic product. It's the #1 sold beverage spirit in the world, coming from Jinru. But it is not what we're going to be talking about today. So unfortunately, if you love soju, this is not the right seminar for you. But why did this happen? Why did a lot of people realize that soju, or get soju and shochu confused? Well, in 1998, California passed what was known as the Type 41 license, which essentially was able to sell liquor to restaurants, but under the umbrella of soju. So when the Japanese companies found out about it and found the possibility of entering a higher sales market, they were able to kind of jump on that. And the only thing that they had to change was writing shochu on the bottle to soju on the bottle. And that created this generational confusion on what this Asian beverage is. And so that's why I think a lot of us are so confused on what this beverage should be, and it should be classified as. Boo, soju, shochu, I don't know the difference. Well, hopefully you know a little bit more about it now. Now, what we're here to talk about a little bit is shochu hospitality, and I want to shochu hospitality. So with these cocktails that will be coming around right now, you have your classics back in, the 1800s when cocktails were starting to be popularized. You had classic cocktails like the gimlet, the daiquiri, martini, Manhattan, Negroni, old fashions, and Sazeracs. And though those are wonderful cocktails, the ABV of those were at 40% or 80 proof, and shochu doesn't have that alcohol by volume, so you can't really substitute an old fashioned in the same way of taking a barley shochu in place of bourbon. And the same thing with these contemporary cocktails. You have your brambles, you have your mimosas, perhaps a milk punch, mojitos, mules, and pina coladas. And what's happening right now is that you're seeing this kind of surge of cocktails happening, especially in New York City. Your Double Chicken Please is now is the best American bar. Martini's is the best North American bar. All these cocktail bars are now really pushing Asian beverages in such a beautiful light, and I'm very excited for the category itself. Speaking about a little bit of liquor sales too, and why it's important to have shochu in cocktail menus, is that at the Golden Swan, which is what TGS stands for, our liquor sales are at 25%, our wine sales are at 20%, which is fairly average for most businesses, especially since we just opened about several months ago. Our cocktail costs, when pricing them out, range at roughly 12%. And the pour costs, depending on how the business is ran, should land between 15 and 18%. The average cost of cocktails, not necessarily cocktail bars, I would say is roughly $15, and it's kind of going upwards to maybe $25 or so, especially cocktails and so on. But what's really interesting is that you're seeing a lot of more low ABV cocktails or non-alcoholic cocktails finding placement on menus and in showcases and such. When I was the beverage manager at Rule of Thirds in 2022, we had our shochu sales primarily at $46,000, just a little bit over, which is phenomenal, which is something that I think really put us on the map as far as a destination for all things Japanese beverage. We had some lovely folks earlier talking about their sake program, and I think the shochu program really has a place in its diaspora as well. Within that space, 20% of the liquor sold was shochu. So not including menu cocktails, we're really pioneering that beverage and that brand to a lot of people so that they can understand the differences between shochu and soju. And the best way to kind of showcase that in a hospitality light, as they kind of shed a light on earlier, was through cocktails. So popular cocktail in Japan is a shochu highball, also known as a chuhai. That was kind of our welcome cocktail for lots of events, so that they can start understanding that this is not a place where you get a picture of margaritas or you get a frozen pina colada. This is something a little bit more special and more detailed. We also were doing a lot of splashes and pairings, and I think that's also another wonderful way to bridge this idea of getting shochu into people's hands just by passing it out simply and then talking about it with well-educated staff members. Now, in front of you right now is the pinky drink, as I like to call it, because it is a pink drink. It does contain hyakutake, or hakutake hyaku, with 2 ounces of it. So it is a premium shochu because the pour cost of that is $2.12. You have some shiso syrup with an ounce of that being $1.26. Some Fever Tree grapefruit soda, as well as elderflower tonic water to kind of balance out the sweetness of the beverage. And then, of course, the baby's breath garnish on top to just kind of highlight, and when you see a room full of pretty flowers and pink drinks, you just kind of smile and think that, oh, great, this looks beautiful, and I would love to have some. But the total of that cocktail is $4.38, and so that is probably a very premium cocktail price, but though a great product. At the end of it all, you can find ways to manipulate the prices by choosing different shochus, maybe more affordable shochus for your programs. It all depends on your beverage costs and what you're doing it for. Now, slowly but surely, once everyone gets a nice little pinky drink, we'll be having the McMilk Punch. What I really love about this cocktail is that it's a large format cocktail, or it's a large batch. So what you're doing is you're getting 1.75 liters of Takara shochu. You're getting some whole milk. At this point, it's going to be half a liter. A rooibos bourbon vanilla tea, as well as orange juice and honey syrup. And you're going to throw that all into a large vat, let that sit for a little bit, steep with the tea, and then pour that batch into the milk. And what that does, it's an old school method in the 18th century created by Benjamin Franklin to help preserve these sugars and these acids and citruses. And what that does is that it yields a lot higher volume, and so you're able to down or lower that pour cost so that it becomes about 53 cents an ounce, which is so much more affordable and opportunistic for brands, for bars, and for restaurants to utilize. I did have a Maiwari coming along, and I think that speaks on itself. Is that Maiwari, if you don't know, is just shochu and a little bit of water. But you let that sit for about a day just so that it kind of mellows out together and is able to be enjoyed. Now that you've had a couple cocktails in front of you and you're seeing kind of the different ways to enjoy shochu, let's see. We can talk a little bit further about it. So the pinky drink, of course, was a version of a chuhai. You have this McMilk Punch situation with a little bit of buckwheat tea that is on the rim just to kind of give it that nice little nutty and this like kind of pop, this wow factor. But typically you'll have these various options of either neats on the rocks as a highball, a chuhai, and oyuwari or with warm water. Now for a lot of businesses, I think a great way to get people to be introduced to shochu is primarily through flights. It is a much more of a value decision, right? You get to have multiple different shochus, or you could have the same shochu paired in a lot of different ways, either contrasting through different flavors or ingredients like kome, mugi, and imo, or rice, barley, and sweet potato, as well as showcasing maybe just barley shochu with a little bit of soda water with a touch of maybe Coca-Cola or something bubbly, and with warm water. Shochu cocktails, I think, is very familiar. It's really fun to get people involved, but also shochu and food pairings. So right now, Ryu is going around with a little bit of this really fun and tasty French fry snack to pair with that milk punch to really get it together. Otsumami, if you're familiar with the term, is essentially a snack with a beverage. In a lot of Japanese bars in Japan, you'll pay this kind of cover fee of maybe $100 or a few bucks really, just to sit down at the bar. But what that covers is a small little snack to pair with all the beverages that you will be consuming, and it kind of helps keep you on your seat when you're drinking bottles and bottles of shochu. And I think that's also really exciting, especially in a restaurant stance, because pairing food with specific shochus can start bringing guests together in a more community format. You're not so much sitting at a bar, your elbows are there, and you're either alone or you're on a date, but it becomes a much more ritualistic and ceremonial aspect. What we like to talk about at the Golden Swan is our CRMs, or our customer relationship management. And what that means is when we're hanging out and talking and making cocktails for folks, we really want to get to know our guests, because if you get to know your guests, they get to know you, and then you build a relationship. And from that, you get to manage the relationship and see what they enjoy, see what sakes they like, see what shochus they particularly are fond of. And perhaps what they're not fond of. What dishes do they primarily like to enjoy and find new and interesting ways to pair? Because the more that guest returns, the more celebrations that they'll have with you, and the more that they can kind of bring other guests, family, friends together with you. So the last thing I want to leave you guys with is this thing I like to call fire. You want to find the fire, the feelings, the introductions, the relationships, and the expressions within your guests, right? You can't make a guest, or you certainly will not try to make your guests feel any type of way. How they feel is all solely up to them. And when they're drinking a cocktail that has reminds them of a McGriddle or breakfast with their mom when they were a kid, that is a fun feeling that they can probably introduce to you. And then from there, with that introduction, you can find other things to build upon. These introductions can no longer just be about you and the guests, but the guests with other guests, the guests with other industry folks, the guests with other industry gatherings and opportunities. It's all about the relationships. It's really about seeing what the relationship is with Shochu and having no experience whatsoever to then all of a sudden becoming someone that carries it in their house, that gifts it to friends at holiday. And it's their expressions. But primarily it's your expressions. It's how you want to sell this shochu. It's how you talk about it, how you feel about it. Most of the time when you're selling something at a restaurant or at a bar, primarily it's the excitement between the staff members that kind of help push the category along. I think that's what happened with Mezcal primarily back in 2010, was that people were just so interested in that spirit. It was smoky, but it was fruity, it was tropical. You can make it into a cocktail, but you could sip it. There was a lot of cultural aspect to it as well. It was no longer just tequila comes from Mexico, but a world of spirit, a world of culture comes from Central America. And so with that, fostering these pillars, understanding that staff training is incredibly important. Designing the space, the decision-making of your management, of your operators, as well as your staff, creates wonderful hospitality. But to do so, and thinking about fire, and if it's a cloudy day, if it's a rainy day, and you have an oyuwari, and you've seen a guest just drenched in water, that you present them that little small beverage, that little token, just to say, hey, welcome. Thanks for coming in today, and I'm excited to have you and take care of you. Anyways, many thanks. Arigatou gozaimasu. Xie. If there's any questions, thank you. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them about shochu cocktails. The floor is mine. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, he basically said everything that I wanted to say. So the floor is his. Any questions that you might have, you guys can come up here and ask him. And yeah, if there's nothing else, then that's it for the seminar. Yeah, you guys can come up here and ask him any questions, or feel free to exchange business cards if you want to. But yeah, you're free to do whatever now.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.